Good evening. It's so exciting. I'm so thrilled to be back in Prescott, and also that I get to come back again on Saturday, so twice in 1 week. I just love coming to Prescott, as most of you know from my last campaign in 2018. I was so proud then, with your support, that it was the first time in over 20 years that Arizona has elected an educator to lead the Department of Education. And it was also the first time in over 20 years that a Democrat has led in this role as state superintendent. And why stop there? I love breaking glass ceilings. So when last year I found out that when I gave birth to my daughter Clara, it was the first time in our country's history that a state superintendent has had a child while in office. Now, as we all know, the past couple years have been among the most challenging, the most unprecedented years in public education, along with the rest of what our community has experienced. But this has been an unprecedented situation of challenges that we've been dealing with in our school system since the pandemic hit. So I was really proud that one of our biggest investments was just over $21 million to increase the number of school counselors and social workers in our schools. When I first started, again back in 2019, our student to school counselor ratio was about 905 students for every one school counselor. That was the state's average. No surprise, that was the worst ratio in the country. Now, after working both with our legislature and this investment of federal funds, as of the last data we have available, we now know that we have already effectively reduced that ratio by 20%. So as of the last data available, we're now roughly at about 705 students for every one school counselor. But this is important because it means that by adding all this additional funding, we're not just moving people around. We're not just taking a counselor from here and moving them over here and moving this one over here. We're actually adding the number of mental health professionals in our schools statewide. So that is something we are very proud of. I do want to talk a bit about the campaign. I know Kendall kicked us off with that, but I am thrilled to be running for a second term, mainly because I love this work. I love this job. I hope it shows. I'm very passionate about it. I'm running as a clean elections candidate, and I'm very dedicated to that as well. I had success as a clean elections candidate in 2018, and that does mean that I'm actually completely done fundraising. I did not take a dollar from any PACs or special interest groups, and the maximum that any person could donate to my campaign was $180. As of about a month ago now, we know my opponent is Tom Horn, who is a known person in Arizona from his prior experience in elected offices. I draw the contrast that he has been a career politician versus my own background as a career educator. Share a little bit more of what's been unfolding over the past week or so is Tom Horn had the audacity to defend David Stringer. I'll start there. Many of you know David Stringer from this area. He is known as a disgraced lawmaker after it was discovered that, multiple things. He had made extremely racist comments about Arizona students. And then secondly, it was discovered that he had been accused of being a pedophile and that those records became publicly known. Well, you would think that if you're running for state superintendent that you might not want to be associated with someone with that type of very public record about the history of being a pedophile and racist. But instead, when asked, is he working on your campaign, he did not hesitate and said, absolutely. So again, just making the contrast of what kind of values and character my opponent has in this election, and I personally will not back down with being very clear that under no circumstances should anyone working in education and be associated with David Stringer or that type of character. And I think it says a lot about Tom Horn that he's been coming to his defense and promoting him. So I will not back down on those facts. But I would love to take questions, and I only covered pieces of what we're doing in the department, but if there's particular topics you'd like to hear more about, I'm happy to take time for Q&A. Thank you again for having me.
I was involved in school budget in New Mexico, and I love what you're doing as far as the counselors, but that's a grant that has an end to it at some point. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to generate the funds necessary to keep those people unemployed?
Yes, actually, I have very good news about this. So the school counselors, social workers, and then also SROs are all under a grant program that's called the School Safety Grant Program. And so we use the $21 million specifically for the school counselors and social workers, but just being clear that the program does encompass SROs as well. And this last legislative session, just a few months ago, the legislature added another $50 million to this program. And when I first started in 2019, the School Safety Grant Program was a $12 million program. Then we worked with the legislature to add additional state funds, and then again this year, another $50 million. So it is now an $80 million program for those types of school safety positions.
We all the school districts now, we have school board races, and we hear these buzzwords. Oh, we're not going to fund social emotional learning. The parents are the ones that are in charge, and then of course the other one is critical race theory. But could you help me understand where the animosity came for either of those programs? Let's just take the social emotional one first, because the kids are suffering.
I can try to explain from my perspective of like where is this animosity coming from for the SEL, social emotional learning. To me, it's mainly misinformation, and that it's been very strategically blasted out from right-wing channels on Facebook, on Twitter, through Fox News. So what I'm seeing is a messaging campaign that's really taken hold that is intended to create distrust between families or the general public and the local public schools.
I have a question on the voucher implementation. Should the expansion be allowed, which is a big old if, from my perspective, we already have private schools here in Prescott. When I was driving up here, one of them was advertising the full voucher expansion. What is going to happen? Should they take, I saw a school actually that opened enrollment on the 1st of September and said they would hold payment till the 23rd. What happens if this does not happen, which is very likely not going to happen, to all these families that have now pulled their kid out, they've enrolled, or they're in the process of moving? Where do these kids go?
That is horrifying. Thank you for sharing that with me, because literally that school will not get paid.
So they're going to bring those kids in under this program that's not implemented. They're going to have them for.
They should not have done. I mean, that is horrifying. Thank you for sharing that.
So first of all, very inspiring. So we can tell that you are very passionate about your work, and I cannot wait to see you get reelected. And obviously, we need to be doing everything that we can to help Kathy get a state legislature and a governor and a congressman re-elected. We're really facing, in my opinion, the most important election of Arizona's lifetime, in my lifetime. They're going after the schools like that because it's annuitized funding. So whenever there's money, they're going to try to take it, and they're going to try to profit off of it. So there's legislatures that make money off of that when it happens. So that's I mean, it's really complicated, but that's the reason. When they see annuitized money like that, no matter if it's taxpayer money or not, they want it in their pockets.
I'm proudly, relentlessly optimistic for the future of public education in Arizona, and that is because of exactly what I've shared with you about what the magic I see when I visit our schools. The growth our students make, their enthusiasm. When I was in a school visit, I was in the Glendale Elementary School the other day, and I just love to ask the kids, like, what do you love about your school? And they all said the teachers, and it was so sweet. That's the other thing that motivates me too, is just seeing in such practical terms that we still have so much work to do. So just keeping up that relentless optimism, and then collaborating with amazing groups like this that, supporting each other. Last thing I'll add is just making sure you take time for yourself and self-care. I try to remind my team of that, at least, that we all have self-care and that we unplug sometimes.
Self-care is in December.